In this video, I want to recreate some regex in Power Query, where here I have a table with some employees, and I want to do regex on the first name column, where I want to search for an S, and then grab all of the text characters following that S, meaning here I will look for the S, then I will grab the rest of the text, and here with Mr. I will grab the text to the right of the S, and then once I come to the backslash, I will stop. We can do this fairly easily with regex, but we can't do regex natively in Power Query. We can via R or Python, which is the first solution. We can see here that what I want to do is to use a positive look behind, which means I want to look for a small s or a capital S, but I don't want to include that in the text I grab. I then have to add a capture group because this is required by Python, or rather the pandas library. Then I'm looking for a range of characters, being the small letters and the capital letters. Then I want to grab as many as I can. And then I don't have to specify that I want to stop when I come to a non-text character, because that happens natively. In this last row, I actually get two outputs with miss, but I want to only grab the first match. I can copy this regex, and then I want to apply that with Python, where we can go into the transform tab and run a Python script. And then in here, we see that dataset refers to the previous step, and we can change that if we want to. I want to import pandas as PD, and I want to add a new column to the dataset, and this should then be equal to. Go into the dataset column, first name. Then upon this, I want to apply a string function called extract. And then I want to pass in a raw string, which is because the actual regex includes some special characters. And let's say I had the \n, that would be a new line character, but I want to interpret that as actual text. Then I can pass in the regex with a closing quote, and then I can actually output that. Here I want to change the dataset to not be source, but the TBL data, because I don't actually need that first step. Then I actually have to extract the value, which is then the variable dataset. So the dataset variable has been overwritten. I can say I want to extract the row where the name is equal to dataset, and then I want to extract the value column, and then we get the table. That was very easy when you have access to regex, but let's say we don't have that. Because if you want to run Python or R, then you need to install that on any computer that has to update the report. Also, you can't use it in Excel unless you use JavaScript. Next, I want to solve it by adding a column with a manual process, which I wouldn't recommend, but it is possible. I want to add a column to the table called text after S. This solution uses the split any function, so we'll call the column that. I first want to create some variables because there are a lot of background calculations necessary. I first want to find the first instance of the S, which I can do with text position of any. I want to go into the first name column, find either a small s or a capital S, and then I want to output the occurrence first. Next, I want to check whether there actually is a match, because I have some rows that don't contain an S. Next, I want to split my text, because I don't care about the text that comes before the S, which once again uses text split any. This time I want to use the position from the position S variable. I want to extract the middle of the first name column, where I want to go into the position S and add 1. Text mid will automatically grab everything to the right of this position unless we pass in a count, but we won't be passing that in. Next, I want my separator, because I then want to do another split, because this function grabs the text to the right of the first S, but then I want to stop once I come across a non-text character. This is why this solution is highly manual, because we have to provide our own list. I couldn't figure out how to get text split any to do an inverse list, that is to say split when you find a character that isn't a text. Instead, I have to provide all those characters myself, which is quite manual. And every time you find a new character, you'd have to go back and change this, meaning it is nowhere near ideal. And then we're actually done with our variables. Then I want to use the has a match variable to say if has a match. Actually, yeah, then I want that to be a condition. I can just as well do that up here. Say if the position of S is greater than or equal to 0, then that means there is an S, and I need to, actually I did a misspelling. So now I have to fix that everywhere. Now my has a match variable is a conditional check, which means I can simply ask if has a match is true. And if it's true, then grab the first instance, because text.split any will then do a split when we come to the non-text character, and I want to grab the first part. And then if there is no S, then I want to output no match. And then we get an error, we cannot convert a value to text. That's because text.split any wants the separators to be text and not a list, so now it works. And actually this Melissa has multiple S's, I believe 5 S's. So here we should have 4, which we do. Then here with Mr. and Miss, I only want to grab the first instance, which I do. So this works, but you have to manually update that list, meaning you might want to make that a variable. Next, we can also solve the problem using a splitter, which is better, because then we can do split by character transition. And here I can pass in that list of text characters. I want to start out by creating a splitter function, which is going to use the split text by character transition function, whereas we can then say to do this split when you go to a text character. I want to pass in a list with all of the small letters and all of the capital letters. This won't include special characters like the Danish letters or German letters. This function takes the before as a list and an after as a list, meaning I want to do a split when we go from a text character to a non-text character. And here I can fortunately use inversion via not list contains. But I need to pass in a function, which is going to be next goes toward not list contains. Then we can copy paste this part. And then my value is going to be the next value. So this function will check the text, and I have to pass in this next because I need to do an inversion. And then I have to add a parentheses. And then we can use this in. I just want to get back the TBL data view, and then we can change it again. Once more, I want to add a column to the TBL data. And again, this should be called text after s splitter. And once again, I actually want to copy the same code. So I'm going to be a bit lazy and copy it. And now we need a new variable called position of non-text. Then again, we have the variable position of non-text, where this time I want to use my splitter function, which is then again going to use text middle because I want to go to the right of the first s. And then the splitter is going to do its thing, which can then divide the text into multiple parts, but we only care about the first part. Because you might have multiple character transitions later on, but we only care about the one after the first s. Meaning we again say if has a match is true, then I want to grab the first part from position of non-text, otherwise I want to output no match. And then we get the same output. And I just want to show what happens here. We get a list back, and then here we get that ter, and then a slash, because we have a character transition between the text, the r, and a backslash. But again, I only care about the transition after the s. This is a better solution as it uses a splitter function, and we can do an inverse lookup here with not list contains. But still, the Regex solution is superior if you can guarantee that all users have R or Python installed, or you could do it with JavaScript. The last way to solve it is by using Recursion, which is quite long, and I'll be impressed if I do it without, but it is fun. Once again, we want to add a new column, and actually I just want to see the TBL data as a background. Now we add the column called Recursion, and we need a lot of variables. Again, we use position of s, and we only want the first occurrence. Next, we want to grab the length of the text, because we need to loop through the text, which will make sense when we get further along. Again, we want the has a match variable to check that there actually is a match and there's a reason to continue. And the text can start with an s, so I need to check if it's equal to 0. But if there is no s, then the match function will output -1. Next, I want to create a function which is going to take 2 arguments, meaning I will copy this. That's going to take the 2 arguments start position and my text, because I'm going to iteratively create a text string. And then I'm going to have variables inside of the variables. I want to extract the next sign of my text, which is going to use text middle, because we can go to a position in the middle and then grab X amount of characters. This time I want to grab 1. I want to go into the first name column, go into the start position, and then grab the next character. And then I want to create my concatenation. I want to check that if the start position is equal to position of s plus 1, and this will make sense in a moment. If so, then I want to extract next sign. Otherwise, I want to add my text. This is because in the first iteration, we don't have a text string, and in the second and third iteration and so on, we need to append text. So otherwise, I want to output my text and then add the next sign. And then the next variable. Next, we need to check if we should continue. That is, if we don't have that character transition from text to non-text, I can then say if start position is equal to the length of text, because then I need to stop because we hit the end. And then I can do the inverse as we did in the splitter solution. I check whether the next character is not within the list that contains all of the text letters. And if you wanted to add the Danish characters or German characters, then you would add it here. And then we say I want to extract next sign. This will then grab the slash and stop. And if that is the case, then I want to output my text. And then if this isn't the case, well, then we should continue, which means I want to call my function. And I need to call that recursively, meaning I need the add sign at the front. Then I need to go to the next position, meaning I want to output the start position plus 1. And then I want to add concatenate as my text, meaning that I keep adding text to my text. Lastly, I need to output that variable, check to continue. And then we can break out of the second tier of variables and say again, if has a match is true, then Then I want to use my function with position of s plus 1 because I want to go to the right. Then my text starts out being the first name column. And otherwise I want to say no match. And if I did everything right, then this works. So it is a bit of a mess, but it does work. Unfortunately, we can also do that list inversion to say that we want to look at a character transition. But I would probably not recommend doing recursion when the splitter solution is so much simpler. But it was fun to figure out. So, yep,